The night I decided whether to survive or disappear, it was raining so hard the sky felt angry at me personally. I had $10 in my pocket, my last 10, and by sunrise, I would either have food or nothing. That's when I saw her. I was sitting under a broken bus stop shelter, water leaking through the cracked plastic roof, soaking the cardboard I had laid down to trick myself into thinking I wasn't sleeping on concrete. The wind cut through my jacket like it was tissue paper. My shoes were wet. My stomach had been empty since the day before. Funny how fast life can collapse. 6 months earlier, I had a house, a wife, a small construction business I built from nothing. I wasn't rich, but I was respected. Men shook my hand firmly. My phone rang with opportunity. Then my business partner disappeared with our biggest contract deposit. $200,000 gone. And because the contracts were under my name, the debt was mine too. Suppliers showed up at my door. Lawyers sent letters. My wife stopped looking at me the same way. Respect turned into suspicion. Suspicion turned into blame. You should have known better, she said one night, standing in the kitchen we had renovated together. You trusted him too easily. I trusted him because he was my cousin. Blood. But blood can drown you faster than strangers. Within 3 months, the bank took the house. The trucks were repossessed. My phone stopped ringing. And my wife, as she packed 2 suitcases. I can't live like this, she whispered, not meeting my eyes. Like this, like me. That was the night I understood something painful. People love you when you're rising. They tolerate you when you're stable. But when you fall, they step aside so you don't pull them down too. So there I was under that bus stop, the storm roaring like it was applauding my failure. I kept touching the $10 in my pocket. A $10 bill so wrinkled it felt older than me. I had planned it carefully. There was a 24-hour diner 3 blocks away. $10 could get me coffee and something small, enough to think clearly, enough to survive the night. I was building a plan in my head. Small steps, day labor, save, regain stability, quietly. Slowly, prove everyone wrong, especially my cousin, especially my wife, especially myself. That's when I heard it crying, not the kind adults do when they're trying to be quiet. This was small, panicked, broken. I turned my head and saw her standing near the edge of the streetlight's glow. Maybe 8 years old, maybe 9. Soaked, hair plastered her face, wearing a thin pink jacket that wasn't built for storms like this. She was looking around like the world had just disappeared. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. But then she wiped her nose with her sleeve and whispered, "Mom." The word hit me harder than the wind. I stood up slowly, my legs stiff from the cold. "Hey," I called out gently. "Are you okay?" She flinched, took a step back. I must have looked terrifying. Unshaven, wet, clothes worn thin, a man with nothing. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said, raising my hand slightly. "Are you lost?" She nodded. "My mom went to get the car," she said, her voice shaking. "She told me to wait by the store, but I got scared because it was dark and then I couldn't find it again. The nearest store was 5 blocks away, closed hours ago." "Do you know your mom's phone number?" I asked. She shook her head again. The rain intensified, slamming against the pavement. Cars sped by without slowing. I looked down at my shoes, then at her tiny sneakers filling with water. This wasn't my problem. That's what the old version of me would have said. The version with a house and stability. That man would have called the police, waited inside somewhere warm. But I didn't have warm. I had $10 and a choice. "Are you hungry?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. Of course she was. I could walk her to the diner. It was bright, safe, crowded enough. We could ask to use their phone. Maybe someone would help. But that meant the $10. My $10. The only thing standing between me and another night of pure hunger. I felt anger rise in my chest. Not at her. At life. At how unfair it felt that even at my lowest, I was being tested again. I almost laughed. You lose everything. You get betrayed. You sleep on concrete. And the universe says, "Let's see what you're made of." I pulled the bill from my pocket. It felt heavier than it should. "Come on," I said. We walked through the rain together. She kept close but didn't touch me. I didn't blame her. Inside the diner, the warmth hit us like a different planet. The smell of fried food made my stomach twist painfully. The waitress looked at me with suspicion first, then at the girl. Her expression changed. "She's lost," I explained. "Can we sit for a minute? And maybe a grilled cheese or something cheap." The waitress nodded slowly. I handed over the $10 before I could change my mind. The girl ate like she hadn't seen food in hours. Small bites at first, then faster. I just watched. My stomach growled loudly. She looked up at me. "Aren't you eating?" "I'm not hungry," I lied. I was starving. When she finished, the waitress let us use the phone. We called the police. They said they'd send someone. We waited. Minutes felt like hours. She finally relaxed a little. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel." "I'm Lily." "Nice to meet you, Lily." She smiled. No one had smiled at me like that in months. Then the diner door burst open. A woman rushed in, drenched eyes wide with panic. "Lily!" The girl jumped off the seat. "Mom?" They collided in a hug so tight it looked painful. The woman kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," over and over again. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. Her eyes scanned my soaked clothes, my shaking hands. The empty plate in front of her daughter? You found her, she asked. I nodded. She found me, I guess. Tears filled her eyes. Thank you. I don't know what could have happened. I shrugged. She was scared. Anyone would have helped, but we both knew that wasn't true. The police arrived, took a quick report, confirmed everything was fine. The woman turned to me again. Please, she said, reaching into her purse. Let me at least give you something. I stepped back immediately. No, it's okay. She frowned. You don't understand. I do understand. I interrupted softly. Just take her home? For a moment she didn't move, like she was trying to memorize my face. Then she said something strange. You won't always be out here. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Before I could respond, they left. And just like that, the diner felt cold again. I stepped back into the storm. No food, no money, no shelter. But something inside me felt different. Not better, stronger. Like maybe I wasn't completely broken yet. The next morning, I woke up under that same bus stop, shivering, weak, regretting nothing but feeling the cost of it in my bones. 2 days later, I was sitting outside a hardware store hoping for day labor work when a black SUV pulled up. I didn't pay attention at first. Cars like that didn't stop for men like me. But then the window rolled down, and a familiar voice said, Daniel. I looked up slowly. It was her, Lily's mother. But this time she wasn't panicked. She was calm, focused, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Recognition. I've been looking for you, she said. My heart started pounding. People don't look for homeless men unless there's a problem. And then she said the words that made the air feel suddenly heavy. I need to talk to you about what happened that night and about something you don't know. I stood there, rain dripping from the store awning as she opened the car door and stepped out, and that's when I saw who was sitting in the back seat, my cousin. The man who stole everything from me, and he was staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. He looked thinner, paler, not the confident, loud man who once slapped my back at family dinners and called me little brother. This version of him avoided my eyes for half a second before forcing a smile that didn't reach his face. What is this? I asked, my voice low, controlled. Inside, my pulse was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Lily's mother stepped closer. Up close, I could see she hadn't slept much either, but not from stress like mine. From something else, determination. My name is Victoria, she said carefully. And before you walk away, please just listen. I almost laughed. Walk away from the man who destroyed my life. But I didn't move. My cousin finally stepped out of the SUV. His shoes alone probably cost more than everything I owned at that moment. Daniel? He started as if we were meeting for coffee. You look different. Homeless, that's the word he was avoiding. I am different. I replied. The air between us felt electric. Every memory came rushing back. The signed contracts, the trust, the handshake, the day the accounts emptied. Victoria glanced at him, then back at me. I didn't know who you were that night, she said. But when Lily told me what you did, when I saw you refuse money, I had someone look into you. I stiffened. Look into me. She nodded. I run a private equity firm. That caught my attention despite myself. And when I heard your name, she continued, it sounded familiar. It took me a day to remember why. She turned slightly toward my cousin. Because his company has been on our watch list. My cousin's jaw tightened. What company? I asked quietly. He answered this time. Daniel, don't make this dramatic, Dal. Answer me. He exhaled sharply. The new development firm. The one I started after everything. After everything. After he drained my accounts and left me drowning in lawsuits. Victoria didn't break eye contact with me. We were reviewing potential investment risks, she said. And there were irregularities. Missing capital. Unexplained transfers. It wasn't enough for legal action yet, but enough to raise flags. My stomach dropped. You're saying, I began slowly. I'm saying, she said, that the money used to launch his firm traces back to an account that once belonged to you. The world went quiet. Even the distant traffic seemed to fade. I looked at him. He didn't deny it. You used my money, I said. Not a question, a statement. It wasn't that simple. He snapped. You were going under anyway, You just what? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I took an opportunity. That's business. Business. That word burned. Victoria stepped between us slightly, not physically blocking, but positioning herself as control. I brought him because I wanted transparency, she said calmly. He doesn't know everything I know yet. His head snapped toward her. What does that mean? She ignored him. Daniel, she said, the night you helped my daughter, you didn't know who we were. You didn't know I had the power to change your circumstances. You acted with integrity when you had nothing to gain. Her voice softened. That tells me more about a man than any financial statement ever could. I didn't know what to say. Anger and confusion were colliding inside me. I don't need charity, I muttered. This isn't charity, she replied sharply. This is leverage. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Thick, organized, intentional. These are preliminary findings, she said. If pursued legally, they could freeze his company's assets within weeks. My cousin's face drained of color. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, she said without looking at him. I stared at the folder. This was it, the moment I had fantasized about during freezing nights and empty mornings. Proof. Power. the ability to drag him down the way he dragged me. I wanted you here, Victoria continued, because the decision should be yours. Mine, he laughed nervously. Daniel, don't be stupid. You think she cares about you? She's using you to crush competition. Silence, she said coldly. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear in his eyes. Not arrogance, not charm, fear. You ruined me, I said quietly. You were weak. He shot back. You trusted too easily. That's not my fault. The words sliced deeper than the theft ever did. Weak. I remembered sleeping under rain-soaked plastic. I remembered my wife walking away. I remembered skipping meals. Weak. Victoria watched my face carefully, measuring, waiting. If we proceed, she said, he loses everything. The company collapses. Investigations follow, potential criminal charges, but you would also regain legal claim to misappropriated funds with interest. My heart pounded louder. Everything I lost, returned, maybe more, and if I don't, I asked. Then we restructure, she said. I invest not in him, but in you. Silence. Even he looked confused. What? He barked. She finally turned to him fully. Your operational model is aggressive but unstable. His original business plan was sustainable. I've read both. You built on stolen foundation. He built from vision. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, clarity. You'd invest in me, I asked slowly. Yes, she said. But understand something? This isn't revenge funding. This is calculated partnership. I don't bet on people because I feel sorry for them. Her eyes locked onto mine. I bet on character. The hardware store door opened behind me. Someone walked out, glanced at the tension, and hurried away. I looked at my cousin again. The man who once toasted to my bright future. The man who emptied my accounts. You don't deserve this, he said under his breath. You'll mess it up again. There it was, the same contempt, the same belief that I was lesser. For a split second, I imagined saying yes to legal action, watching headlines expose him, watching his board abandon him, watching him stand where I once stood alone. The image was satisfying, too satisfying. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. Power reveals who we really are, she said. You had none the night you gave Lily your last $10. Now you have options. That's the real test. My hands were shaking, but not from cold anymore. From choice. I reached toward the folder. My cousin's breath caught. And just as my fingers touched the edge of the papers that could end his empire, I looked up at him and said something he never expected to hear. I don't want your company. The words hung in the air like thunder that hadn't decided whether to strike. My cousin blinked. What? Victoria didn't move. She was watching me like a chess player studying the final move before checkmate. I don't want your company. I repeated, steadier now. I don't want to take what you built, even if you built it with what you stole. He let out a breath that almost sounded like relief, but it was too quick. Too nervous. You see, he said to Victoria, I told you, he's emotional. He doesn't think long term. I ignored him. I want what's mine, I said calmly. Not revenge. Not destruction. Accountability. His relief vanished. Victoria tilted her head slightly. Go on. You said the funds can be traced, I continued. You said there's evidence. Then I want every dollar that was taken from my company, legally documented, returned with interest. I want public acknowledgement of misappropriation, not a private settlement, not a quiet transfer. My cousin's face turned red. You're insane. That would destroy my reputation. I looked at him evenly. You destroyed my life. Silence again. The wind picked up in the parking lot, rattling loose metal on the store sign above us. Victoria finally spoke. That's a precise demand. I don't want him homeless, I said. I don't want him starving. I don't want him to feel what I felt. I paused. I want him to feel exposed. His jaw tightened. You self-righteous? You called me weak. I cut in quietly. Weak people hide. Weak people steal from family. Weak people justify betrayal as business. He stepped forward, but Victoria's voice sliced through the tension. Enough. The authority in her tone made both of us still. She looked at him now with a cold professionalism that sent a chill through the air. You have two choices, she said. One, we proceed with a formal investigation. Asset freeze and potential criminal referral. Two, you sign a full restitution agreement, public acknowledgement of financial misconduct, and step down as CEO within 30 days. His eyes widened. Step down. Yes, she replied. Your board will be informed that the resignation is part of a restructuring initiative. The statement will include your acceptance of responsibility regarding misallocated startup capital. He looked at me like I had personally set his world on fire. You'd ruin me over this, he hissed. I held his gaze. No, I'd correct what you ruined. For a moment, I saw it, the calculation behind his eyes. The weighing of ego versus survival. You don't understand how this world works, he muttered. You think integrity pays? It doesn't, power does. I took a slow breath. The night I gave your investor's daughter my last $10, I said, I had no power, and yet here we are. That hit him. Victoria closed the folder softly. I'll give you 48 hours, she said to him. After that, the decision will no longer be yours. He looked between us, disbelief turning into quiet rage. You think this makes you better than me? He asked me. No, I answered honestly. It makes me different. He shook his head, stepped backward. and got into the SUV without another word. The door slammed hard enough to echo. Victoria didn't move until the engine started. "Are you certain?" she asked quietly. "Yes. You could have taken everything. I don't want to become him." The SUV drove off, tires cutting through puddles, disappearing into traffic. For a long moment, it was just the two of us standing in the gray morning light. "You surprised me," she said finally. "Why?" "Most people in your position choose destruction." I stared at the wet pavement. I already know what destruction feels like. She studied me carefully. "If he refuses the agreement, the legal route will move forward automatically." "I understand." "And if he accepts," she continued, "the restitution will give you enough capital to restart your business. But you'll still need structure, strategy, discipline." "I've had nothing but time to think," I said quietly. "I know exactly where I went wrong before." Her expression softened slightly. "Trust?" I nodded. "Trust without verification," I corrected. "Blind loyalty. Emotional decision-making." She extended her hand. "Then let's build something smarter." I hesitated only a second before shaking it. Her grip was firm, equal, not pity, partnership. 2 days later, I received the call. He accepted. Not because he felt guilty, because alternative terrified him. The official statement was released a week after that. Carefully worded, legally precise, but clear enough. Misallocation of founding capital sourced from a prior business partnership. My name was included, so was his acknowledgement of responsibility. The business world reacted fast. Investors withdrew. The board requested his resignation to preserve organizational stability. And just like that, the man who once called me weak was stepping down from the empire built on my collapse. The restitution funds hit my account 3 weeks later. Seeing those numbers again didn't feel like victory, it felt like oxygen. But this time, I didn't rush, I didn't celebrate. I built a plan. Victoria and I met in her office. Glass walls, city skyline, stretching endlessly behind her desk. A different world from the bus stop shelter. "You have the capital?" she said. "Now what's your foundation?" I slid a new proposal across the table. Revised, lean, transparent systems, financial oversight, third-party auditing, no single point of control. She scanned it slowly. "You've changed," she observed. I had to. Outside her office window, the city moved like it always had, unaware of storms, betrayals, or cardboard beds under bus stops. But inside me, something had shifted permanently. Not anger, not bitterness. Awareness. Weeks later, construction began on my new project, smaller scale than before, but cleaner. Structured, accountable. Word spread quietly. Not about my comeback, about my refusal to destroy. About the public acknowledgement I demanded instead of secret revenge. Reputation, I learned, doesn't return the same way it leaves, it rebuilds differently. Stronger. One afternoon, months later, I saw him again. Not at a boardroom, not in a luxury SUV, but across the street from my new site office. He looked normal, no interact. No confidence radiating from him. Just a man adjusting to life after exposure. He noticed me watching. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he crossed the street. I could see the tension in his shoulders as he approached. "You got what you wanted," he said quietly. "No," I replied. "I got what was mine." He nodded once. There was no apology in his eyes, but there was something else. Understanding. "You were never weak," he said after a pause. It wasn't admiration. It was reluctant respect. And that, more than money, more than headlines, more than boardroom victories. That was the moment I realized something. The storm that made me homeless didn't break me. It stripped me of illusion, of blind trust, of ego. And standing there, looking at the man who once destroyed me, I understood the truth he never would. Power isn't taking someone down when you finally can. Power is having the chance and choosing who you become instead. He stood there for a few seconds after saying that, like he expected me to respond with something dramatic, something sharp, something that would let him walk away angry instead of reflective. But I didn't give him that. "Take care of yourself," I said simply. It confused him more than any insult could have. He nodded once, turned around and walked away, not defeated, not victorious, just human. And for the first time since everything collapsed, I felt taller than my circumstances. But growth isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It tests you again, quietly. 3 months into rebuilding, we hit a wall. A supplier delayed shipments. A contractor tried to inflate invoices. A minor oversight in paperwork nearly cost us a zoning approval. Old anxiety crept back in. The kind that wakes you up at 3 a.m. with worst case scenarios. What if I lose it again? What if this comeback is temporary? What if I was only lucky this time? I started double checking everything obsessively, then triple checking. I trusted no one completely, not even the team I carefully selected. Victoria noticed. "You're overcorrecting," she told me during a meeting. "I can't afford another collapse." "You're building walls so high that nothing can breathe inside them," she replied calmly. There's a difference between wisdom and fear. That hit harder than she probably realized. Because she was right. Pain had taught me discipline, but it was also trying to teach me isolation. One evening, after a long day at the site, I sat alone in the unfinished office. Concrete floors, exposed wiring, the smell of dust and potential. I thought about that bus stop again, about the version of me who had nothing but $10 and a choice. Back then, I didn't overthink. I didn't calculate. I didn't protect myself. I just acted. Because sometimes character isn't built in boardrooms. It's revealed in storms. A knock on the temporary office door pulled me out of my thoughts. When I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Lily, standing there, holding her mother's hand. She looked different now. Healthier, confident. But the smile was the same. Daniel, she said shyly. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Victoria stepped forward. We were nearby. She insisted on seeing where the storm hero works. I laughed softly. Storm hero, that's what she calls you, Victoria said. Lily stepped inside, looking around at the unfinished space like it was something magical. You're building this? She asked. Yeah, I said. From scratch. She nodded seriously. Mom says you're brave. I glanced at Victoria. She had my gaze, but there was no business calculation there. Just quiet acknowledgement. After they left, I sat down again, but something inside me had settled. I wasn't rebuilding just to prove people wrong anymore. I was building because I knew what it felt like to lose everything and survive. Months passed. The first project launched successfully. Modest profits, clean books, transparent systems. Word began to spread not about dramatic returns, but about reliability. In an industry driven by shortcuts, that alone became an advantage. Investors who once ignored me now requested meetings. Former colleagues reached out. Even family members who had distanced themselves started sending casual messages. Proud of you. Always knew you'd bounce back. I didn't respond with bitterness, but I didn't forget either. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory, it just removes poison from it. One afternoon, I received an unexpected invitation. A family gathering hosted by my uncle. The same uncle who had raised a glass at my wedding and joked about whether I could afford a honeymoon. For a moment, I considered declining, not out of fear, out of indifference. But then I realized something important. Avoidance is still reaction. And I was done reacting, so I went. The house was the same, loud voices, forced laughter, the smell of grilled meat in the backyard. Conversations shifted when I walked in. Eyes followed, whispers softened. My uncle approached first, older, less commanding than I remembered. Daniel, he said, clearing his throat. Good to see you too. There was an awkward pause. Then he said it. I shouldn't have made that joke at your wedding. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. But it was real. I know, I replied. He nodded slowly. You handled yourself well. With everything, I almost smiled. Respect feels different when it's earned through survival rather than inherited through status. As the evening went on, I noticed something else. No one was laughing at me anymore. No one was measuring my worth by quick wins or flashy success. They were listening, asking thoughtful questions, seeking advice, not because I had more money, but because I had endured more loss and rebuilt without becoming bitter. Later that night, as I was leaving, my uncle raised a glass again. The same hand, the same posture, but this time his voice carried a different tone. To resilience, he said, and to learning the hard way. There was no laughter, only agreement. Driving home, I realized something powerful. Revenge would have been easy. Expose him, destroy my cousin, humiliate the ones who doubted me. But revenge is loud and temporary. Transformation is quiet and permanent. The storm didn't end when I gave away my last $10. It began there. That night stripped me down to who I really was when no one was watching. A man who could choose generosity over fear, integrity over desperation, accountability over destruction. And now, years later, when I walk past bus stops in heavy rain, I don't see weakness. I see crossroads, moments where identity is shaped. Sometimes people ask me what the turning point was. Was it the restitution? The public acknowledgement? The partnership? No, it was a soaked little girl in a pink jacket and a wrinkled $10 bill. Because losing everything didn't define me. What I did with nothing did. And that's the part no one can ever steal again. Years later, people still ask me what the unbelievable part was. They expect me to say it was the black SUV, or the investigation, or the restitution that rebuilt my life. But the truth is quieter than that. The unbelievable part wasn't that a powerful investor found me. It was that when I had absolutely nothing, I still had a choice. And I choose not to become bitter. Success didn't arrive like fireworks. It arrived like sunrise, slowly, consistently, without asking for applause. Our company expanded carefully. No shortcuts, no inflated promises. Every contract audited, every partnership transparent. I became known not as the man who was betrayed, but as the man who rebuilt correctly. Victoria remained a partner, but over time our relationship evolved beyond business. Not romance like some dramatic storybook ending, but something steadier. Mutual respect forged in crisis. One evening after a board meeting, she asked me a question that stayed with me. If that storm never happened, if Lily had never been lost, who would you be today? I didn't answer immediately. I thought about the version of me before everything collapsed. Ambitious, optimistic, but not envy, trusting without boundaries, confident without depth. I would have grown, I said finally, but I wouldn't have transformed. There's a difference. Growth adds, transformation replaces. The man who stood under that bus stop died that night, not physically, but mentally. The illusions died. The dependency on validation died. The fear of being seen as a failure died. What replaced him was someone quieter, stronger, Less concerned with proving, more concerned with building. A year after the restitution, I did something no one expected. I created a small private fund, nothing flashy, dedicated to helping entrepreneurs who had been financially sabotaged or unfairly pushed out of partnerships. Not grants, structured support, legal guidance, financial oversight, education about contracts, and due diligence. Because I learned something painful. Talent fails when protection is absent, and I didn't want someone else sleeping under a bus stop because they trusted the wrong handshake. When the fund launched, I didn't attach my story to it publicly. I didn't brand it around struggle. But word spreads in ways you can't control. Eventually, someone connected the dots. An article came out, "From Homeless to Founder, the Storm That Built Him." I didn't love the headline. It made it sound dramatic. It wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate. Around that same time, I received an email that stopped me cold. It was from my ex-wife. Short, direct. "I saw the article. I'm glad you're okay." No apology, no explanation, just acknowledgement. For a moment, old emotions tried to resurface. Hurt, abandonment, questions about loyalty, but they didn't stick, because I understood something now that I didn't back then. People don't always leave because you are unworthy. Sometimes they leave because they are afraid of uncertainty, and not everyone is built to endure storms. I replied with 2 sentences. "I'm doing well. I hope you are too." And I meant it. Closure doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes it requires internal alignment. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a business ethics conference. Ironically, the topic they assigned me was integrity under pressure. Standing on that stage looking out at hundreds of professionals in tailored suits, I felt something strange, not intimidation, responsibility. I told them about contracts, about verification systems, about oversight structures. And then at the end, I told them about $10. I described the rain, the bus stop, the hunger, the choice. The room went silent, because everyone understands money, but everyone remembers a moment when they had nothing but a decision. After the talk, a young man approached me. He looked nervous. "I was betrayed by my partner last year," he said quietly. "I've been angry ever since. I wanted to ruin him. Hearing you, I don't know. Maybe I should focus on rebuilding instead." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Anger feels powerful." I told him, "But discipline builds power." He nodded slowly. That night, driving home, I realized something. The storm was no longer a painful memory. It was a reference point, a compass. Every time a decision felt heavy, I asked myself one question. If I only had $10 and nothing else, who would I choose to be? That question never failed me. Years later, I drove past the old bus stop. It had been renovated. New shelter, clean bench, bright lighting, no trace of the night that changed my life. I parked the car and stepped out. The air was calm. No rain, just a quiet evening sky. I sat down on the bench where I once shivered, closed my eyes, and for a moment I could almost hear the storm again. Feel the weight of that crumpled bill in my pocket. See Lily standing under the streetlight. Back then, I thought giving away my last $10 was reckless. Now I understand it was the most profitable decision I ever made. Not financially, internally. Because it proved something to me that no investor ever could. That my character wasn't dependent on my circumstances. That integrity wasn't a luxury of the wealthy. That generosity doesn't wait for comfort. The unbelievable thing that happened after that storm wasn't money. It wasn't exposure, it wasn't revenge, it was alignment. The outside world eventually matched who I chose to be inside. My cousin he rebuilt too in his own way. Smaller ventures, quieter life. We aren't close, but we are civil, and that's enough. Victoria, still my partner, still sharp, still reminding me when I drift too far toward caution. Lily, she's older now, taller, confident. She once told me she wants to start her own company someday. I told her one thing: whatever you build it clean. She smiled and said, "And always carry $10. I laughed. No, always carry character, because storms will come, people will betray, money will disappear, reputation will shake. But if you can stand in the rain with nothing and still choose to do what's right, then you were never truly homeless. You were just being rebuilt." And that night, under a broken shelter with $10 in my pocket and the world against me, I didn't lose everything. I found the only thing that actually mattered.